Good morning. It's Tuesday, January 7th, 2020, and you're watching the Daily Mix TV. Hi, my name is Sean Patrick Hillman. It's only the 7th of January, folks, and we're already having announcements from retailers about closures. Furniture chain Pier 1 Imports says it may shutter up to 450 of its doors, resulting in mass layoffs. Now, it also says it may close some of their distribution centers after word hit the street that they have, in fact, drafted a bankruptcy plan. The furniture specialist, which currently has 936 doors across the country, made the announcement after reporting a third quarter loss of $59 million. Now, sadly, Pier 1 is not the only chain that has announced closings in the new year. This morning, it was reported that Macys is closing at least a capital. So yesterday, we talked about how holiday numbers were primarily up, which is fantastic and strong for the economy. But traditional department stores still stood out as a loss. Here's what's going on. You've got a 1.8% dip in sales at traditional department store retail, while their e-commerce went up. So here's the problem with all of this information. You've got companies that are trying to cut costs to remain profitable for their shareholders. At the same time, the product mix is suffering because they're shorting inventories. We talked about this a little bit yesterday in terms of your forecasting and your planning for holiday 2020. At the end of the day, if you buy too much inventory, you then need to put that on discount immediately after the holiday to recoup those costs. The problem for a lot of retailers is when you step down your discounting. So what that means is after the holiday, you put out merchandise for 25% off. Then it's 50% off of the merchandise that doesn't sell. Then you go to 75% off. It's a big challenge in retail right now in terms of forecasting and ordering. Now, bear in mind, this is not a new problem. This is something that's happened historically time and time again. What happened this holiday, though, in 2019, retailers were much smarter about their inventory and their orders. However, the challenge becomes if they don't have those discount programs in January, they're looking at a very, very serious issue in terms of losses going into the first quarter of the year. Now, when you look at a Pier 1 Imports as an example, it's a specialty store. It's a furniture chain. And a lot of their inventory is eclectic. So when you look at almost 1,000 doors across the country and they're closing about half of their stores, you have to start to ask the question, is the chain still viable? Pier 1 has always been one of those very interesting stores that has unique product, and often they come out with some really, really great accessories and stuff like that. Their primary furniture, though, is where they're having a problem. So it's going to be interesting to see how they pivot or attempt to pivot over the course of the next quarter and see what happens there. As for Macys, the problem with Macys has historically been they're too big to fail. So they're closing at least 11 stores right now. A lot of those, I have a feeling, are mall-based because of what's happened in mall traffic being down. Now, let's pivot for a second and look at Bed Bath & Beyond. That's the store you go into, much like Target, where you're going to buy one thing and you walk out with, over $100 in sales. So the question becomes, why are they having such a challenge? The answer? Debt load. It happens to every retailer. A lot of these guys use factoring to try and fund inventory buys and things like that. The issue becomes when you do that you then have a debt line. Now, some debt can be healthy. Most debt is not. In the case of most of these retailers, unfortunately, their forecasting didn't ladder up to actual results. While numbers were certainly up for the holiday, there are a lot of retailers that are still suffering. So 2020 is going to be an interesting year for them, and I have a feeling for many of them, it's going to be make or break. Looks like the millennial-driven ride-hail service category is winning over more folks than originally thought. More than half of U.S. car owners who use ride-hail services say they would actually consider giving up their car in the next decade for services like Uber and Lyft, and that's according to a recent study from Accenture. Now, the news isn't all rosy for these guys, folks. In the face of 92% of respondents saying they're satisfied with ride-hail companies, The majority don't have any brand loyalty. 52% switch from company to company depending on pricing. So when you look at Uber's surge pricing and other factors as an example, you might book Lyft at that time because Uber's too expensive. Or if Lyft doesn't have enough cars on the road and you're in a rush, then you're going to book Uber. So there are a lot of factors that play into this, but the biggest concern for consumers, data protection. 72% of respondents say they don't fully trust the company they ride in with their data. So, or excuse me, 27% of respondents say they do trust. So you're looking at 73% of respondents don't trust those companies. That is a really big concern. And frankly, in today's world, with the amount of online identity theft, the amount of fraud, and so on, I don't blame them. Frankly, and we've talked about this before on the Daily Mix TV, I'm not a fan of Uber. Frankly, I think that they're greedy and they're bad corporate citizens, given the things that they have pulled. Certainly, the political games they've pulled in cities like New York and London, where in London, their license is still up for appeal. So 2020 is going to present an interesting year for RideHail. I have a feeling that that trend has sailed and that you're going to start to see people return back to more traditional modes of transportation, like in New York City, yellow cabs. At least, God, I hope that's what happens. Little Caesars is saddling up with DoorDash for delivery from 3,600 doors in the US and Canada starting this week. The Detroit-based pizza chain, which is banked on fast pickup times and short wait times to attract customers, has fallen behind in the fast food wars. The problem for Little Caesars is they've failed to pivot and evolve over the course of the last decade. When you look at McDonald's installing their kiosk programs, when you look at McDonald's and their new app, the same thing with Burger King and Wendy's, certainly the sense of humor that Burger King and Wendy's and McDonald's have had with their social media community management, Little Caesars just hasn't kept up in that way. Now, let's look at their direct competitors of Domino's and Papa John's. Papa John's last year, as we all know, had a really bad year because of issues with John Schnatter, their founder and former CEO. Now, you look at Domino's, who stayed out of that mix and pretty much they grew a lot during 2019 at the cost to Papa John's because of those controversies that we talked about last year. So when you look at Little Caesars, they haven't kept up with those two direct competitors. Now, you look at the category as a whole of fast food, they're way behind the eight ball. So they need to catch up, and partnering with a company like DoorDash is a smart move for them. I just hope that they look forward more to continuing to evolve their technology offerings and certainly the experience in their stores. Magnum is continuing to adapt and launch new flavor profiles as well as formats. The Unilever-owned ice cream brand announced the launch of a new product featuring Ruby chocolate, Magnum Ruby Minis. Now that contains Ruby Cacao with ice cream. Ruby Cacao contains a berry fruitiness, unique pink color, and are sourced from different regions around the world. It's available in six packs, in packs of 6 bars at select retailers. Magnum Ruby Minis will hit grocery stores nationwide for the suggested retail price of $4.99 at the beginning of next month in February. So Magnum is one of those very sort of boutique brands that you love because the quality is definitely there. The mass distribution, not necessarily as much as, let's say, a Haagen-Dazs or Ben & Jerry's and so on. They all have similar bar formats, but Magnum has always been known for their very unique and certainly a little more gourmet-oriented approach to their brand. Now, apparently, the Battle of Hudson's Bay has come to an end. The department store company, which owns Saks Fifth Avenue, has agreed to a new, higher bid by Executive Chairman Richard Baker and his partners to acquire the retailer for $8.46 per share in cash. The Baker-led group raised their bid following heated protests from Catalyst Capital Group, which is based in Toronto. It's a private equity firm that owns just over 17% in the retailer. Now, the raised offer delivers significantly more value for all minority shareholders, according to the company. Now, that's well above the original proposal. So for them, for Hudson's Bay, the entire focus has been dragging that company back to private because of the issues that are happening in department store and traditional retail. So it's going to be interesting to see how Hudson's Bay performs privately, but also what they do to continue to evolve. Hopefully, they're able to do what they need to in order to revitalize the Saks Fifth Avenue brand, which unfortunately last year's complete retrofit of their Fifth Avenue flagship in Manhattan did not work out the way they thought it was going to. Now, I rarely do this, but, my friend Matt Slosick, who works at Moet Hennessy on the Belvedere vodka brand, he's been a buddy of mine for a long time. He and I worked together on Bacardi. He had posted something this morning which just stood out to me, and I had to say something. So a friend of his has launched a new footwear brand called Scoots, and it's the world's first plant-based footwear brand. They've got a Kickstarter campaign going on right now, and if you see the image on the screen, Matt had ordered these shoes, and they had arrived with the note, as you can see. Very smart marketing, very cool thing to do. As I said, they're a Kickstarter campaign right now. Their products are comfortable, versatile, and environmentally helpful or environmentally impactful. And the way that they do it is very interesting in terms of the sustainability side of it. So you look at their first product, which is the PA1, Pineapple 1. It's actually pretty cool. So I'm going to call Matt today or tomorrow and find out what he thinks of the shoes. But I have a feeling this could be a really cool brand. If you just look at the way that they've put it together, it's very smart. So congratulations to Scoots. I hope the Kickstarter campaign works out for you. Looking at the way you've approached this from somewhat of a tongue-in-cheek perspective, as well as a sustainability and serious perspective, is very smart. It's very versatile. So kudos to you guys. Can't wait to see how it goes. My name is Sean Patrick Hillman. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Daily Mix TV. If you guys have any questions, comments, or story ideas, please email thedailymixtv@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you tomorrow on Hump Day.